what would you say if I said that I could bring them back?
I guess I'd say I never thought of that.
Well, alright, hold tight, you might want to stand back because one small John is coming intact.
St. John forward, spitting out some more words, fully intact, jacked, ready to rap and attack. Small John on your lawn, living like a gnome, hit you with my lyrics like a bullet to your dome.
Tonight when he comes up here, he's either gonna kill or he's gonna suck. But there's no in between for Mr. John Forward.
Oh, well, I didn't know any of that.
That's me. I should be saying things now. Welcome to the show. This is St. John Forward Radio. I'm John Forward, and it's nice to be back. This is the first time I've been live and in the studio for over a month. The last one I recorded it like it was live, but it was not on Monday night. But here I am back in the studio, remembering the rush to come in once the last song on the previous show plays and get everything sorted out so that it's ready to go. I don't know what's been going on. We just had a show at No Jokes Barred at the R Bar this past weekend, which was a lot of fun. Brian Godso, who was on the show, commented that it was one of the best No Jokes Barred shows in recent memory, and I agree. Everybody had a fun set. We had Scott Belford on loan from Yuck Yucks for about 10 minutes, so that was nice to spice up the show a little bit. I like to give spots to the locals, but it's a special treat to have a pro on the stage, and he seemed to have a good time and made the show better, and we're probably all incrementally better from having worked with somebody like that. So that was a lot of fun. Everybody else had good sets too. I think that's about it for shows that happened this weekend. I was on vacation last week. We went to PEI. This is probably what I could have talked about in the intro if I had thought about it, but no effort. This is going to be a truncated thing. I don't know, 2 days in PEI. I don't know if that's worth talking about for 10 minutes. We need to get to Summer Camp Beef 2017 Part 8, but not this week though. So I've just been gearing up. Roast battle at Sundale Afternoons is starting back up again on this Sunday, August 26th. Last time I bowed out, I just never signed up. I was never into it, but as the thing was going, everybody else seemed to be having a good time. I went to watch all the shows and felt like I was missing out, so I didn't pass up the chance. So I'm going to be making my roast battle debut on Sunday. I'm going to be going head to head, belly to belly with Brian Godso, so that should be fun. Who else do we got on the show? James Hovey is going to be roasting Ian Esty. That should be a good one. Drake, Tobias, and Dan Terrio. I hear there's a score to be settled. I'm not sure what it is, but can't wait to find out. But I think the highlight of the evening is probably going to be John Nesbitt versus Tyson Ardo. I had both of them on the show earlier in the summer, so you can check that out in the feed if you want to see what that dynamic's all about. Been in a little bit of a hateful mode, getting ready to do that. Might be talking more smack than I should be or normally would be, but I've got a big mouth and stuff comes out, such as my disparaging comments about the local music scene over the past many months. I've been noted. I didn't realize that I was talking about it so often, but I don't doubt it. At least a few times I have mouthed off about how the St. John comedy scene is dead and there's nothing going on, when it's entirely possible that I'm just lazy and I haven't bothered to find out what's happening, and it's not coming to me in my own living room. So I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. But a listener took issue with that and wanted to set the record straight. So here he is, Brian Cleveland.
Happy to be here.
So, what's your? You were the station manager here for a while. Is that
Yeah, I was a station manager here for almost 10 years.
right?
Volunteer DJ before that. Been off the air for about 6 months now. Just kind of took a break, clean break.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, a lot. But it was kind of the right time to do something different. When I came here, I was a student as a volunteer for a couple of years, and then the job happened to come available like maybe 1 month after graduation. Seemed like a really cool opportunity. Figured I'll do this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then a decade went by, and it was time to do something different, let someone else, come in with some fresh new ideas and do things differently. And then I had a new job that my co-host and I for a while tried to make the show work for probably about 3 months, and then our schedules were just not matching.
Yeah.
So I figured, I'll take maybe I'll take a year off and then see if the bug bites again.
Yeah, it's hard to coordinate people, especially if you have to be here on a specific time.
Sure.
I think that's how my original show kind of fell apart. And we ended up, we left because we wanted to be able to do more swears on the internet mostly, but just having to coordinate everybody to get everybody together to even do the podcast when it can be recorded anytime was still just a logistical nightmare. So
Yeah, and I have a 3-year-old now, so by the time I get off work, I really only have 3 hours to spend with her, and then my co-host was traveling a lot, so just didn't work out.
have you considered having the 3-year-old be your co-host?
She has been on the radio more frequently than most 3-year-olds, probably.
Right.
Yeah, she was on a couple times as I was on parental leave for a while, and we'd still come in and do my show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a more fun chore than like cleaning up stuff. You got to be Daddy's co-host on the radio to get your allowance this week.
Yeah, so it's been a couple of years since she was on, so she might have a better grasp of what's happening
Sure.
now.
So working at the local community radio station is pretty good local music cred. But how else are you involved with the local music scene?
Just tangentially as a fan. Always
Okay.
just kind of been a fan. Don't have a musical bone in my body. No abilities whatsoever here. Just a fan of lots of different arts and culture that happens in the city, and try to pay attention, support as much as possible.
Yeah,
Music, comedy, shows, theater, all kinds of stuff.
I don't know how old you are.
I'm-
Would you have been around like in the early 2000s when I was like regularly going out to do shows? I don't remember you from back in the day.
Sure, you're probably a few years older than I am. I'm 32.
But yeah, I'm
So
35.
I started going. So we were probably a couple year gap, but
Yeah.
but relatively close.
Yeah, I was. I think I was most active in the St. John comedy scene back in the Draft Cycle days. Were you were on that?
Yeah,
So,
I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd probably seen me trolling and being an idiot on the internet as
Oh, no
MC
doubt.
Crosswalk.
There's
yeah.
so many people now that I wish I knew. I wish I could tie their usernames to their faces, because I'm sure I've met many awful people on the internet.
Yeah, and there's some of them, including a lot of like local musicians, that no matter how good their band is, I'm just like, that's the guy that said that thing to me on the internet 15 years ago. So I hate this band.
Yeah.
There's a bit of that. I guess just what my comparison to it. I'm sure there's more going on that I'm not aware of, but the way that I remember it when I was university in like prime nostalgia, like I was probably just remembering my youth and not being sore all the time. But from what I remember, like they had Elwoods, which is where Cask and Kettle is now, was kind of the primary. There was a rock show going on pretty much every weekend, every Friday and Saturday night, and that was a good venue for it. And the Waterfront had stuff going on down on Water Street. I don't know which building that is now, but that I think that only lasted for a couple of years. They got shut down. It was kind of sketchy. But,
Yeah, when I was starting to go shows, it was mostly Elwoods, Acord after that,
Yeah.
Studio 112.
Oh
it was
yeah, I
called,
remember
or
that.
Studios.
Where was that?
That was on
Or-
Water Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember like back then. I think the big bands that everybody would get excited about, like locally, I guess Ermine was probably the big thing back then. Who else was around? The Organizers were playing around a bit. I really liked the band Hollow back in the day. I think they put out an EP and an album at some point. I don't know what they're doing. I know Dave McEwen, I think, was the drummer for them. He's in my friend Joel's band Grim Reefer, who I haven't seen in a long time. I really liked them when I last saw them, but they play a lot at the Panic Room, which is closed now. But every time they seem to be playing a show, I usually have a comedy show where I'm out of town or something at the same time, so I never get to see it. But I used to really like seeing like Steve Fudge do Curbside Project stuff. It was kind of there was a lot going on. Like the Wednesday night open mic at O'Leary's was kind of the central thing, I think. So that's kind of what I'm comparing it to. And I know there are shows going on, but it doesn't seem like it's, I don't know. Am I wrong in that it's not as much as it used to be?
I think that you're wrong. I think that there was a good period of time where it was a real dirge of activity, and there was a lot. There's a lot of youth moving out of the city, so there'd be the occasional band that would pop up, and it would disappear pretty quickly. And I went to a lot of really bad, poorly attended shows.
Right.
But in the last couple of years, when I was working here, especially since Bandcamp came around,
right,
and people could put out music, it seems like at least more people were recording, more music was accessible. There was definitely a period of time where there was nowhere to play shows. It was basically Peppers, and that was it. And they had a pretty limited view of what style of music and bands they would want to have come through.
I've heard bad things from people about
sure
working with
that
Peppers.
I could fill that with a couple hours of of content and get myself in a lot of trouble. But
that's why, like, I've had ideas that maybe we could do a comedy show there, but everyone that has ever had any experience has been like, no, don't.
You're gonna get me in trouble. O'Leary's still been going strong. I think it's still that show has been going really, really well for a couple of decades now.
The open mic, you mean? Well, I saw a few months ago that there was kind of like a last ditch, like, come on, everybody, we got to come out, or this is going to shut down.
I think it waxes and wanes for sure. That's never been something I went to a lot. Anytime I have been there, it seemed like it was doing pretty well, but I think you're right. It might. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, well, and I was more apt to go and be out late on a Wednesday night drinking when I was 20 than I am as a 35-year-old.
Oh, listen,
man.
I haven't been to live music outside of free things in an afternoon on the boardwalk or something. In a nice few months myself, so I completely understand.
Yeah, I haven't been out to the Wednesday night one in a while, but the last few times they'd been there over the past probably 5 years, it has been okay, but it doesn't seem like it's I don't know, it didn't seem as big of a deal, I guess.
Sure.
That might be just me, I don't know. But.
Yeah, but then after that, people just kept trying to find places that weren't likely venues to put on shows. Probably the same thing that you were trying to figure out when you're trying to get our bar shows going on, and other people are trying to figure out where
the our bar is the most likely place to have a comedy show.
Yeah, fair enough. Who can we convince to that what we're going to bring is going to put a few more bodies in the seats than might otherwise be there, and if that means that they're going to have to put on a rock show for a touring band on a Tuesday, then maybe they'll give it a go. And so there's a lot of trial and error, lots of bad shows, lots of poorly attended shows. But over time, it started to pick up. Callahan's, which I guess is now Callie's, started doing a lot of shows. Taco Pica did a lot of shows. There was a lot of shows at the Pub Down Under. And from my understanding, Peppers seemed to be a bit more open to the style of bands. And people seem to have been getting treated better than what would have been said otherwise.
Yeah, I used to enjoy going out to Peppers. There were I wasn't sure who was local or what. Like, I know they've got the guys that plays like mostly covers, I think, on Thursday for the wing night. But on the weekends, I used to like going down there and seeing just whatever was going on. I just assumed that it was mostly all touring stuff. I didn't really recognize the names, and that might be part of it too. But the last few times I've been to Peppers has just been not. I don't know. I went to one earlier or when was it? Was it on Friday night? Maybe it was on Friday night, and it just I kind of liked it, but there was only like 4 people, I think, there watching them. There's a few people like out on the patio and on the thing, and I just kept thinking, like, if I was on stage right now and this was a comedy show and this is how it was going, I would be like wanting to kill myself right now. This would be such an epic bomb, but they were just powering through and having a great time, plugging their merch table between every song.
Good on them.
Yeah. And I do like the Pub Down Under as a venue. I've gone to see some shows there. Taco Pica, I don't like going to shows there. It's too small. And there's too many people and there's nowhere to sit, and it's
maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We did do a comedy show. I've done a couple of comedy shows there. I actually, the radio station, one of their fundraiser shows was there, and I attempted to host that like probably 4 or 5 years ago.
We did make you do that.
Yeah, that didn't go well. Hey, everybody be quiet and stop having fun for a minute. I've got some creepy things to say.
But and then there's been some shows going on occasionally at the Sanctuary Theater as well, and
I've never been to I've been to some fringe stuff there, but I've never gone to see music there.
Yeah, so I think the main issue is that there was, and again, this is someone from the outside looking in, and my involvement just as a music fan and someone working at a radio station, was that there was never a loss of appetite for things to happen. It was just a struggle to make them happen, and most people would just get frustrated enough to leave. I can't blame people for seeking elsewhere to make those things happen, but we used, at the radio station, we would try to put on events to kind of show people that you could do it and they could have good turnouts. And that there was,
well, I remember, I think back in the heyday that I'm talking about, I think Linda Peltier, who was another former station manager here, she kind of took the lead on all that and did a lot of the booking and promotion and stuff.
Yeah, her and her crew did for sure.
Yeah, and when she moved away, I kind of noticed it dropped off quite a bit, and then I think that's when I mostly checked out, and I hadn't really come back in much since then. I'll come out to the occasional thing. I did go see the show at Callahan's last weekend. I forget the whole Kill Devils, who I think is my favorite local band. I haven't seen a lot of them, but I've gone to see them a bunch of times and always enjoy them. Tasty Wangs was on also. I forget who the opening band. I get the idea of Tasty Wangs and I want to like them. It doesn't do it for me though. I don't know what it is. I don't dislike it, but I don't know what, I like that kind of music, and it seems to be fun, but it just doesn't do it for me.
It's shocking to me that you would like one of those two bands and not the other.
Well,
I'm having a very hard time.
I forget who the first band was. I actually liked them a lot too. I liked the Kill Devils and the opening band, I think, more so than the Tasty Wangs. I don't remember who it was though. Should have thought of it and threw in a plug.
That kind of criticism I can get on board with. If you were just going on air and saying, I've listened to some St. John bands and I don't like them, or what's happening in the St. John music scene is sounds that I don't care for, then I probably would have been like, okay, I think you haven't looked hard enough and that there are things you probably like, but that's fair. But, I'm sure you're probably being relatively flippant and facetious, but then I was just like, 3 times is enough. I need to I'm going to message John. We have somewhat of a formal, friendly relationship. I'm just going to send him a quick note and say, hey, here's some bands you might like, and maybe not.
Well, let's take a break. Why don't you blow my socks off?
Well,
you've listened to the show. You've got some idea of what my musical taste is.
I think so. I generally get the impression that you're relatively eclectic, but you tend to lean towards some heavier things.
Yeah.
And hip hop.
Yeah.
The hip hop scene in St. John is something I'm very unaware of. It seems like there's things that are active, but they change a lot, and they kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, most of the time, even the stuff that I've seen, quite honest, has not been good. It's, Steve Fudge, I think,
you're far more openly critical than.
Well, when I say not good, I just did not enjoy it. But
sure.
I think there's some in Fredericton that I've seen that have actively made me roll my eyes. It's just, I don't know, really bad. I used to like what was the band name? Matt Clifford. I think I just only remember his name because we went to high school together. He was in a band. It was kind of like a sort of had some jam band elements to it, and it was him, and there was a female singer too, and he rapped. I forget what they were called. They were pretty popular for a while, and they were always fun to see. So what do you got for me?
Well, let's play some Right Shitty. They put out an album. I want to say that this came out 2 years ago.
Okay.
And they're still relatively active, as is often the case with so many of these younger bands, as people tend to move away to go to university. Hopefully they come back, do some recording when they're back, things like that. These guys seem to still be relatively active. We're going to go to track 2 here, which was kind of the single, for a lack of better words. And it's a track called Best Buzz. This is on Monopolized Records, which is kind of this small St. John music label that was kind of run by the folks that did Little You, Little Me, and they kind of, I think they found that when you're trying to tour and you tell people this, this is a message from our record label, even though it's the same people from the band that tend to get some clout. Like if, you could make an email for a fake comedy publicist for John Ford, and
I should
the world
try
will be
that.
your oyster.
Instead of just begging to be on a show, I'll just be like, my client, John Forward, is willing to do your show.
For the, he'll drop his usual fee of $500 this night only.
Yeah, so
might work.
All right, well, let's hear some Right Shitty, and hopefully it's not. Back on St. John. Oh, right. That doesn't just automatically stop. It's been a while since I've played a CD on here. So that was
next. We're going to go to those cassettes.
that. My wife has a cassette collection because she's a giant dork like that.
It's not a trend I never was on board with.
Well,
I totally understand why people do it, but I'll tell you, as a radio DJ, cassettes were the worst.
Yeah, there's no redeeming quality about it other than just that it's an old thing that used to be a thing. I don't know.
I don't know how many people actively use the cassettes that they buy. I think it's just one of those things that people like physical.
Yeah, and they still make them. Like I think the newest tape that my wife has is like Run the Jewels 3 that she bought at the show. So that's just another thing to put out on the merch table that somebody will throw $20 on.
Sure, exactly.
So that was right shitty, and I did enjoy it. I didn't love it, but
That's okay. I'm not here to convince you that
But, yeah.
that there's music that you'll like in St. John.
Right.
I'm just here to convince you that it
that
exists.
there are options.
To me, the equivalent that I can put would be if I was standing in the R Bar and there was a comedy show going on before me, and I was complaining about how the only comedy that was happening was Jerry Seinfeld at Harbor Station in a couple of months, because you're literally in the location in St. John, aside from maybe a record store that has the most
Right.
local music. And that you were saying it to people from away. So I was like, that guy doesn't know.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't know any better.
Well, it's not good for the local community radio station that is the
actively
primary outlet
disparaging.
for the local musicians.
Yeah.
And I do see that, because it is frustrating that a lot of people. Well, the Jerry Seinfeld thing, I think more of the touch point for this would be like there's a lot of people that think that Yuck Yucks is the only
I didn't
thing
want
that's
to. I
going
didn't want to
on.
bring up that
fine.
4-letter word.
That's fine. I actually I ran into Steve Barnes, the owner, at Five and Dime on Saturday night, and had a quick hello. And I want to get back on there and do some guest spots, but I've just been busy. And he said email him anytime. It was a fine little moment. I'm growing up as a person.
I guess they've put on some shows in there too. So just like a week or so ago, the Quality Block Party was going on. I know they put on some shows in that venue as well. Some music shows.
Yeah, I'm curious what that looks like, because the stage doesn't seem like it's big enough that would accommodate a band. I would assume that the drummer would probably just be on the stage and they would put everybody else on the floor in front of it. Who knows?
I've seen some surprisingly small stages fit some surprisingly large bands, so I'm sure they make it work.
I once do you know the band White Cowbell, Oklahoma?
No, I can't say that I do.
They're a Canadian band. They play it sounds like kind of like a southern rock kind of thing, but they're kind of theatrical. Like they have like a character who like looks like Colonel Sanders, and he has a name or something. And I went to see them at the Capitol in Fredericton, which is a tiny stage in the corner, and there was like a dozen people on stage. At one point they did a trick where they put like a roll of toilet paper around a mic stand or around a bar or something or other, and they had to put like a mic stand as a barricade in front of the audience, because they took a chainsaw to the roll of toilet paper and kind of flinged it into the audience, but they didn't want to chop anybody's face off. That was a really fun show. And that was a tight fit for a gigantic band on a small stage that can barely accommodate a 3-piece band.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That is a small stage.
Right. And and Taco Pica kind of feels like that too. I've been in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. The stage at the Five and Dime's really small too.
Right. I've only seen like a 1-person acoustic type thing going on in there.
I've seen bigger, but
Or
yeah,
maybe
they
two.
tend to be
I went
one.
to see it was a tribute to something, some like smaller band that I've only heard of because they happen to come up on my like Spotify Discover Weekly. Songs of Ohio or something like that. I went to see that, and that was a good show. I think they were like, there was 2 of them, or maybe it was just one guy. I don't remember. But that was fun. But let's keep it going.
Sure,
with the
yeah,
music.
let's roll
What do
some
we
tunes
wanna
here.
do?
Some of these things I'm more familiar with than others, but that was always kind of my style in DJing anyway, was not always with a ton of a plan, just grab some CDs that I'm aware of and throw on
I've
some
discovered
tunes.
some stuff just looking in the play box and putting something on and like giving it a try. I've heard of that band and just pick one, see what else.
Sure.
Like it's helpful that people write down what tracks are on there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a band called Butcher, and they put out an EP called So I Can Go Away. I'm not super familiar with this, but I am familiar with all of the folks in it, and this is also produced by Monopolized and Corey Bonnevie. I think, probably akin to a lot of the video productions and things that feature comedians in St. John. So many of the bands feature a lot of the same people, whether...
I think Judd Crandall is in every band.
He has at times been in an inordinate number of bands. We can kind of move on to his latest project here later, but he's in less. But he did produce the layout of this of this cover. So
I
there
think
you
that
have
one
it.
was on the list that you sent
It
me.
was, yeah.
My note was that I really enjoyed the music, but I don't like the production on the vocals.
Fair enough.
And there was a lot of the stuff that you sent me that I skimmed through that I kind of like the essence of it. I just feel like it wasn't a great recording. It would be more fun to see live, I think.
I think that can often be the case. I mean, we're talking about...
like everybody
well-
has access to some level of recording equipment, but that not everybody has the same level of knowing how to use it, right?
Exactly.
And has like the top of the line stuff. So
It's also an aesthetic that people are going for at times
like
too.
this one seems to be a little bit on purpose. The vocals kind of distorted, and I don't know. I don't like the choice. What track are we going to hear?
Just throw a random one on. There's 5 tracks.
Let's just go in the middle. We'll hit number 3. What's
We're
it
going to
called?
hear a track called Mental Health.
All right. Let's talk about it. After this message from Diabetes Canada.
So, you're getting rid of some small household items and gently used clothing and just don't know what to do with them? Join Diabetes Canada's Declutter and Donate Challenge and we'll pick them up for free. Keep your items out of a landfill and help fund diabetes research. You could say what you don't want does a whole lot. Schedule your free home pickup today at declutter.diabetes.ca. That's declutter.diabetes.ca.
Don't waste my fucking time. You did this to yourself.
You're listening to St. John Forward Radio, 107.3 FM. Come and get it, because it's hot.
It is hot. Back on St. John Forward Radio. I'm here with Brian Cleveland, taking me through a little tour through the St. John music scene. That was the first song we heard was Butcher with Mental Health, which I agree with my initial assessment. I think I would like to see them live, though. I don't know how to pronounce this one.
I've been under the it's Use.
Okay,
I guess.
USSE.
I've asked. I've been told that it's easier than I'm making it out to be. That I'd say, is it this or is it this or is it this? And I'd be like, it's not. It's not hard to say. So
Well, it's a combination of letters that I haven't seen before tonight.
Right. So we're in the middle. We're right, maybe.
Yeah. So this one was one of the ones that you sent me that intrigued me. Like, I'm not super into that style of music, but I enjoy it just because there's a lot of. That was the only song I think that was less than 9 minutes, which is part of the reason that we wanted to play it.
Yeah.
And I enjoy kind of long, semi-pretentious proggy.
I was hoping that would appeal to the Tool fan in you.
Yeah.
Not that this is anything like that,
but I can see it. I skimmed through it. Do they play live? This feels like it's something that is created in a studio.
I think from my impressions from things that they've said that so they do play live occasionally, but it is very much a studio project.
Yeah,
and when you see
there seems to be a lot of people involved.
Yeah, and I think it was always meant to be that way, that it would kind of evolve and change and have different people. On this release, which it was kind of a collection of singles that they released over a period of time. Mm-hmm. There's 6 or 7 different people on here, but I think their current lineup that just played at the Quality Block Party recently, it was just three people,
right?
And one of them's not living here right now, so
okay.
Yeah,
like that's something that I would be excited if they did like a full show with like a big band and a bunch of people and like pulled off the songs. I think that would be really interesting to see live if it's doable. There seems to be a lot of layers.
Sure, yeah. So. I guess the thing is that I used to go to tons of live shows, but really not at all anymore for a multitude of reasons. So a lot of the newer bands I actually haven't seen play live, so I haven't seen any of these bands play actually. Or I guess I've seen Right Shitty before, but not in a long time.
I think I probably have seen Right Shitty before on various shows. Who else? Yeah, I've seen. I always forget which way to say it. Is it Papal Visit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's Papal or Papal, I've
heard both. No one's told me definitively.
Arif gets mad at me when I say Papal, I think. So it's,
I thought it was Papal.
I do. I am familiar with them. I actually bought the Golden Grove album when that came out. I've known Adam Mowry since high school. So I was never like close friends with him, but he's always been in the orbit, and he's always been a fine fellow. So I enjoy seeing his various musical projects over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And so I mean, he's been in Halifax for a number of years now, but this is a St. John project.
Well, that was, I was going to actually, because that one stood out because I knew he was in Halifax. I don't know if everybody else was. So I'm like, Brian, are you padding this out with Halifax bands just because they used to live in St. John?
Well, this is a St. John project for sure. It's mainly
the album's
Pierre...
called Golden Grove, so we'll give them a pass.
It's mainly Pierre Cormier, who was a regular collaborator with Adam as well, with Adam's solo stuff and when in the Wooden Wives, and they record this fully in St. John.
Yeah, I've seen the Wooden Wives. I remember going to see them a few times.
But you're right. I mean, my thoughts are often about thinking of the Maritimes as a whole, and I had to think of what's John's definition of local, because my show was always a maritime show, so I always played things from kind of mostly New Brunswick, and
it shouldn't matter really.
Sure.
We're all just humans, citizens of the world.
Yeah, and so I think that a lot of bands from away started coming back here too, because the impression that you gave that there isn't a lot of things happening here, and that you don't know if there's a lot of bands, or if there's a lot of shows, or if the things that are happening are things that you aren't interested in. I think it's that was very much true for a particularly long period of time. And bands...
Yeah, I just may not have noticed that it has recovered.
Sure, and you're not obligated to. And I also think nowadays sometimes it can be really hard to figure out what's happening if you're not, vaguely invested and really seeking it out.
How does the word get out?
I think it's
is
Facebook.
Is it mostly Facebook?
I think so. That's my general impression.
Bands do a lot more postering. I used to do a lot more postering for the comedy shows, but they've been happening every month. I just the amount of effort required to do it compared to like most of the people that are going to come have been here before and they know that it's happening.
There was a real crackdown on postering at a period of time too. People were kind of just wrapping polls, and then the city seemed to at a particularly conservative period of time with whoever was on council and whoever was running the city, really wanted to get those posters and for ruining the paint jobs.
I think there was a handful of cranky old ladies just going around because they wanted to. I tried to be pretty conscientious about it when I was doing it. I made an effort not to like wrap the tape all the way around. I usually just do the edges so that they can get torn off pretty easily. Sure. And I usually, when I was putting them up, I would go up the week after it was done and take them down. I'm sure I would have missed a few of them, but I tried not to let my garbage accumulate. And I'd occasionally, if I see an old poster, I'll tear it down. I've already got a bag of trash that I'm carrying around with me. I might as well add into it. But it's hard to tell what works. That's kind of something that's been,
and so I mean, and then the city seemed to, at least in the last couple of years, have a little bit more of a vested interest in the arts and culture and kind of supporting those things. And for a long time, it was kind of the big money makers, and so you see lots of investment in large festivals and the Imperial Theater and stuff like that. But it seems like with enough people kind of fighting for it, different smaller things are able to happen, and there's some support out there for sure. And from things as small as some dedicated sign locations. And I think like Facebook's still pretty active now, but it seems to be on its way out. I don't know if it's going to be as big of a thing in 5 years. So I'm just wondering if there's something else that's going to replace it, or if we're going to have to go back to just old school putting posters up on poles. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And so I think especially now, we're saying it's so easy to put out music, but it's also so easy to get lost in the there's a lot in the fray. There's so much stuff out there. You don't know what's good and what's not good, or what is interesting to you, unless you really want to spend a bunch of time listening to a whole bunch of things. And I don't blame anyone for not wanting to do that if it's not something that they're interested in. Then you don't know who those bands are actively performing, what are that, those sorts of things. But so what I was alluding to was that a lot of bands from away would come here and have really bad shows, and then they would go home to Halifax or Moncton or Montreal and tell all their friends, don't go to St. John. And so for a long time,
it's hard to get anybody out to anything on a weeknight,
sure,
especially in St. John. So if somebody's coming through on a Tuesday, that's rough.
Yeah, exactly. But after a little bit of time, it seems that opinion started to disappear because enough bands had the opposite experience and would go back and tell their friends. The
weeknight music shows I've been to have definitely been more well attended than the weeknight comedy shows. Depends on what it is. If it's at Yuck Yucks, that's got kind of a built-in brand name. So people will come out to it. But I remember one summer we put up like Kathleen McGee and Darren Frost on 2 separate times, who were 2 of the best comedians in Canada. We did those on Wednesday nights at Callahan's, and just hardly anybody showed up. It was kind of depressing.
Yeah.
But I've been to some weeknight music shows. I've been to see B.A. Johnson a few times if he comes in during the week. But yeah, it depends on what's going on. It has to be something. I'm not going to go for just general music show happening if it's on a weeknight. If I'm going to go out, it's somebody that I want to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
but I mean, there is no, I think your question was alluding to where's the easiest spot to go find information. And I don't know if there is one spot. Now there isn't a Giraffe Cycle where you could just go and find out about everything immediately. Now, obviously there's tons of local music on this radio station. There's tons of different things on Bandcamp, but you have to know people who are doing things to find out. Otherwise you're just kind of searching aimlessly in the dark.
Well, let's play another song. Let's go out of the box and play something different than what we've heard so far.
For sure. So, that was a little couple of things that are like slightly aggressive and loose around the edge, and all of the comedian fans that listen to your podcast have turned out by now. They're all gone.
Yeah.
But we get into something a little bit more fun and intentionally comedic. This is a duo called Shrimp Ring. Okay. They put out a couple of EPs. It's mostly synthy, dancey kind of stuff. Phil Clark who hosts a show here on the station and goes by Philip Jaguar on this, or Jaguar Knight on his own solo stuff, and Dan Chamberlain, who's a Renaissance man in St. John, involved in tons of different music projects over the year.
I think the one I remember is Pork Chop Sandwich.
Yeah, for sure. So this is one that came out in June of this year, called Countdown to Oblivion. And we're going to hear track number 2, which is Hot Box Control Room. And so this is a bit more dancey, a bit more fun. Here they certainly put on a pretty fun show.
All right. Well, let's here's some Shrimp Ring on St. John Forward Radio, and we'll be back with more Brian Cleveland.
Justin Trudeau was a teenager on an orbiting space station. An alien cloud surrounded his brain. Since then he's never been the same. Hot box control room. Hot box control room. 1984. Hot box control room. Hot box control room. 1984. Konstantin Chernenko spins through the air, struck by a high five from the air. Ronald Reagan plays war games for kicks, entering the codes on a Juno 106 in the hot box control room. Hot box control room, 1984. Hot box control room. Hot box control room, 1984.
He takes the wheel. The lady's made of iron and stainless steel. Can we trust a robot to see us through? Do they owe us the future? Of course they do.
Control room. Hot box control room. 1984. Hot box control room. Hot box control room. 1984. Do they owe us a future? Of course they do, of course they do. Owe us a future. Of course they do, of course they do. Owe us a future. Of course they do, of course they do. Owe us a future.
We're back on St. John Forward Radio. That was just some Shrimp Ring, which I heard. That's one of the ones that you sent me. I gave it a skim. Not my thing, but I think I would go see them live, and I would suggest anybody else would too. So we're coming to the end of the show. So we had a nice little tour of the St. John music scene. There is stuff. I'm still iffy if it's like to the level that it was, but maybe it's worth investigating more. And I don't know. I don't leave the house that often unless it's to a comedy show. So maybe I shouldn't run my mouth about something I don't know about.
My only goal today was for you to convince you to occasionally glance at the 60 CDs behind you.
Yeah.
The ever rotating, changing mass of local music, and or that maybe you'll and hear them and check them out.
There's usually only 2 or 3 songs per hour on this show, and that I pick anyway. The guest gets to pick the middle song. So I could probably stand to dip in that a bit more and try to go see some more shows, or just decide that I don't care and I can stop talking about it. If anybody out there has been looking to John Forward for your tips on what is or isn't a viable musical entertainment option in St. John, don't listen to me.
What if that comedian from New York, was he was going to go see a local music show that night, and he said, "No, I'm not going." John said it was no good, but he knew a big A&R guy. He was going to make their break. You ruined their dream.
Missed the big break. Sorry about that. So we're coming to the end. I've got. I don't think you wouldn't have anything to plug, or do you have anything you want to promote?
Normally I'm just listening to this show shaving.
Yeah.
This was a different experience than that.
Right. Well, you could have brought a razor in. That would have been fun. This coming Sunday, as mentioned earlier, on August 26th at 8 p.m., Sunday Laughter Dark, first round of the 2018 Roast Battle. So I'll be battling former guest on the show, Brian Godso. That should be interesting. I already said who else was on the show. There's also going to be regular stand-up sets. I don't know who those are going to be yet, but come for the battle. And then the next weekend after that, or no, it's another weekend further down, but the next big thing coming up on September 7th at O'Leary's, No Jokes Barred Deluxe. Mark Splood's making his return to the stage. He's been retired for 4 months, so he's coming out. RF Hussein's going to be hosting that one. I'm going to be on it, and Drake Tobias is going to open it up for us. And that's all. This has been St. John Forward Radio, live every Monday night on local 107.3 FM from 9 to 10. You can hear the podcast version on Wednesdays on Podbean. And that's it. You can buy some T-shirts or something.
Just plug the Fringe Festival's going on this week.
That's right.
Go check out some Fringe shows. And, if we barely delved into what music's happening in St. John. So if you enjoyed some of the things that you heard, or you want to hear someone do a better job than we do, then keep listening to local FM at other times for cool local DJs.
Yeah, and maybe if the feedback from the fans is overwhelming, maybe Brian will come back for part 2 someday.
I sure would. It would be a blast.
All right, well, let's close it out with the aforenamed my favorite local band so far. I've got lots of options now, though, so you're on notice, Kill Devils, but for now you're still my favorite.
Oh, don't take a beef with Rude Rudy.
I've already tried that. Oh, there it is.
And he's always in need of a virgin soul.